Welcome back to another episode of Out of Network. I'm Dr. Ryon Parker here with my good friend and co-host, Dr. Rishi Seth. And today's a little different. We're hitting pause on the medicine, the business models, and the broken systems, and instead really talking about the journey, the wins, the mistakes, the doubts, the debt, the hustle, the comparison, and the grind of residency, and all the things no one ever tells you before you step into this career.
We're calling this one should've, would've, could've, but not in a negative way. These are the life lessons, the ones that shaped us as physicians, as husbands, as dads, as business owners. If you're a med student, a resident, a young doctor, or even someone dreaming of a different life path, this one's gonna hit home. Let's jump in. And welcome back to another episode of Out of Network podcast with Dr. Ryon Parker. I'm Dr. Rishi Seth, and today we're going to talk about life lessons learned. We're going to title it Should've, Would've, Could've. Dr. Parker.
Yes, sir.
You've lived a very long and extensive life in the medical field. Are there lessons you've learned and things maybe you would have changed in your life?
Thank you for pointing out the gray hair. Oh, my goodness. It has been definitely a wild ride. And I get the question a lot if would I do anything different? And I would honestly say, with all the ups and downs of starting a business, I probably would not. I definitely feel I'm in the right place, and I know we do a lot for patients, and the services that we provide are great. So it's been a little bit of a rocky climb to get here as you are experiencing now, and happy to be part of the journey. You know, people ask me if I would have done anything different looking back, and I think for me, it was very easy to compare myself to others who obviously had thriving concierge medical practices. And someone once told me that comparison is the thief of your joy. And it was hard for me to start out at a very humble beginning. I certainly did not have the capital. I had left a medical directorship role at Lifetime Fitness in Henderson, Nevada, and had no patience, but I had a dream. And it was hard. And having this business plan and obviously a lot of debt from student loans, could not get any bank loan to really understand what a concierge medical practice was. So I really had to borrow a lot of money from my mom and dad's retirement to start the practice. But I think the thing that I struggled with was I wanted to have the beautiful building. I wanted to have the marble floors. I wanted to have the gold chandeliers. So when people walked in, they said, wow, this is a concierge medical practice. And someone had to remind me, my dad, who actually, both my parents had to say, it's okay to start out at a humble beginning and grow with it. And at the end of the day, people are not buying the marble floors or the gold chandeliers. At the end of the day, they are buying you and me, right? And whether or not we are in a trailer house, who cares? But for me, if I was walking the walk, I needed to, talk the talk, walk the walk. But I think at the beginning, I had to really learn not to compare myself to others. And starting out in a small clinic that I think was 600 square feet, it was not very big. And I was the doctor, the administrative assistant, the nurse, the MA. I did everything at the beginning. And looking back, it was nice to kind of see how far we have come. Mm-hmm. But I think the big thing is, as we've talked earlier, not to compare yourself to others.
All right. So I'm gonna dig deep here.
Okay.
So you and I both went to the same medical school,
mm-hmm.
right? You and I went through Ross University, which is a foreign medical school.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to an offshore kind of Caribbean school, although it's only for a couple months, or not couple, it felt like a couple months, 18 months. And then the rest of the time you're doing clinicals here.
Yeah. And I hope Ross University is listening to this, right? We're famous now.
We are.
We're famous now.
Here's to Ross. Yeah. Now, my question to you is, and this is the part.
Okay.
You went in 2006 or 2005?
Started in 2004.
Okay. So I started the whole journey in 2006. If you were to do it all over again, would you go the Ross route or would you go the DO route?
So MD route versus the DO route?
Not necessarily the MD route, because like essentially, you know, the MD schools, like the state schools are competitive. And so your goal is like, you got to get into a school now. Do I do the DO school or do I do the foreign medical school?
I think I would absolutely do it again.
Yeah.
I think I absolutely got a great education. The pride in me says, yeah, I would have wanted to have gone to a state school. And again, what we've talked about in other episodes where we have felt, at least I've had to feel like I've had to prove myself because I went to an offshore medical school. But I feel it made me the doctor I am today. And I'm a better doctor because of it, because I feel I worked harder to prove myself at the end of the day. But I still passed we still passed the same tests.
Yeah.
The curriculum, I think, was even a little bit more intensive than some of my college friends who went to the University of Nebraska, for example. But no, I don't think I would necessarily change anything. We certainly can't go back and change it. But I think the pride in me would have said, yeah, it'd been nice to gone to a state school. Sometimes I may have to explain myself if patients ask, oh, why did you go there? And I'm thinking in my mind, do they think I wasn't smart enough, for example?
Right.
I mean, I think for me, I went to a great undergraduate program. I was a double major. I had a great GPA. I did research at the medical center. I worked with a guy who was on the admissions committee. I think for me, I just didn't have the best MCAT score. And I hate to say it, a lot of medical schools base it on that. They weed out a lot of those applicants based on a standard MCAT score.
And it makes sense in their world because they're doing standardized testing. If you can't do well on standardized testing, then you theoretically can't do well in school. But you're totally right. You know, it does not factor into who you are as a physician. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, like I went through the same kind of thing throughout medical school, even residency. I was super insecure because I'm going to these clinical rotations. I feel like I gotta do 2 times as work than everybody else to prove myself. Yeah. But that actually made me better down the long run, right? Because I was always like guns blazing, studying hard, and like going on the rotations, and I always kind of impressed my attendings. Yeah, I did lose a few friends throughout medical school because like people are like, this guy is such a dork. He's always a gunner. And that's that term that you get. Yeah. But that was how I perceived myself because I felt that people would look at me as less than. Yeah. Yeah. And that bothered me so much. And I would always say at that time, I would say, oh, if I could, I would go and try to get into state school or I'd do a deal. But the reality is I wouldn't, because it really made me the student that I am. Right. Ross, or a lot of these foreign medical schools, my sister-in-law goes to a foreign medical school. And I mean, she is a fabulous student, like such a smart kid. And she is hardworking. And it's not all this stuff that's making her to be, it's I guess how I should say it is, the school is providing her the education. It's her who's putting the effort in, right? So it's not holding her back, right? It's not like they're just like pushing her through it. They're giving her a very good education. She's paying for it, and they are a little bit expensive. Yeah.
But I think for those people who really want to be a doctor, this is a good option. Even when I tell my mentor or mentee who really wants to be a doctor, you know what? If you don't get into a medical school in the U.S., there are other options out there. incredible options out there. So at the end of the day, MD is an MD, right? We still have to pass the same tests. We still have to go through the same rigorous curriculum. And I think, to me, yes, medical school gave me the foundation, but residency made me the doctor.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And maybe if you're worried about status and schools, residencies can be important, but really fellowships are.
Yeah.
Right. So like we all know that. Like I don't even many of the people that I talk to, I don't even know where they went to medical school. I just know where they work, and that part matters.
Do you feel, from graduating from Ross, do you feel like it has hindered you in any way to where you are currently?
I don't think it's hindered. In fact, I actually think it helped me. When the residency I went to was at the University of North Dakota, and I remember that the program director had mentioned to me that I was one of the first Caribbean school residents. They'd had one or two before, and they hadn't really entertained it at that time. And what ended up happening is I came there. Well, I trained in these medical American clinical sites. I had worked. I knew the EMRs. I knew, patient experience. And so being part of the American culture is really important.
Yeah.
The reason why that matters is there's a lot of foreign medical graduates who are not from the United States who, yes, they have great medical knowledge, but they may not be familiar with the EMRs, the medical records. They may not understand the hospital system. They may not understand cultural differences between one state to another. So I was in North Dakota, and I think I did well in my residency. And then the next year they had 3 residents from foreign Caribbean schools. And then the next year they had more Caribbean students. So I felt it was a really great opportunity because we were able to open the door and show we're hardworking students. They may have just had, an issue with an MCAT score or an interview through medical school.
I really think that is it. And I understand, obviously we are taking a lot of tests in medical school that are very demanding. And the MCAT is a very demanding test. And I think being able to retain a lot of that information, process that information, and take the test. And we're doing that a lot. I think I was reading somewhere that the best predictor of your success in medical school is what you get on the reading comprehension. It's not the details of the physics section or the organic chemistry. And let's face it, I don't use that in my day to day.
Wait, you don't remember the benzene?
Yeah, part? Exactly. The mole, what?
Yeah.
I think what makes us doctors is the commitment and our work ethic and our dedication to it. So that's what's going to make you or break you. You either want it or you don't. Right.
And I actually also think residency, going to a good residency is really important.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, you're going to take whatever residency you can get, right? Well, and that's totally understandable. And I believe that you can make your residency hard or easy.
Sure.
Really, if you mail it in, you're going to see, so many patients. You can go home. If you don't study, that's something.
And that's one of the things I wish I would have done a little bit better in residency. I teach at one of the residency programs in Las Vegas. And when residents ask me, do you have any feedback for me? I usually tell them, and there's only been 1 or 2 residents that have really, when they rotated through the practice, that they've actually had a pen and paper and they're taking notes and kind of breathing off my every word. And and you can tell those residents that either take this serious or don't. And, and I tell them, I really wish you would write down these little pearls of wisdom, because what better opportunity do you get to work with an attending physician to learn about billing, to learn about how to start a practice, to learn about these little things that they don't often teach you in residency, right? So that's one of the things in residency, shadowing doctors or attendings and going through these different rotations. I wish I would have wrote down those little pearls of wisdom, because I feel like, I've probably forgot more than, but that's the one thing is, wish I would have done differently in residency.
I think the only thing I would have done differently in residency is, in medical school and residencies, that I wish I would have had our kids earlier. Obviously, it's totally different being a male resident and having kids versus a female resident having kids. But I always noticed this.
Still in residency when Sophia was born?
So Sophia was born in my second year residency.
Okay.
We were second year resident. There's a video of us that like the whole birthing process. It's on YouTube. Like, not like the actual birthing process, like me.
Can we show it?
No, it's like it's a video of me, and like I'm just like thinking I remember how I was thinking at that time, which was I want to make sure my daughter's APGAR scores are good. I'm not kidding you. Like I was like, and so like I had told Nira that so much that it was so important to like vaginal birth is so important.
Yeah.
And like meanwhile, like 72 hours into her labor on max Tosin drip, she's looking at me. She's like, "Can I tap out? Like, when can this get done? When can we go?" My mom walked in and she's like, "Just tell them to do a C-section, get it over with." But yeah, I always remember that the strongest students in medical school were the ones who had families.
Yeah.
I always saw that like they had stable relationships. There was this one guy, he had a great family. His kids were on the island and he was always studying and he got such great grades, but he always had the night off. And meanwhile, I'm studying day and night. Why? Yeah. But I realized like, well, I would take like an hour break here and I would take an hour break there and I would goof around, do something. Yeah. So yeah, sure. I studied 8 hours a day, but it was all over the place. Whereas he was like super regimented and he really balanced his time. And I always remember that. And his wife was super supportive and always helping out. And so I loved watching it. So I always used to think if I was to do it again, I'd say, I'd have Nira come out with me to the island and maybe Sophia and Nishan be born earlier. But, time happens and we're blessed to have them at any stage.
It all worked out as it should have. So.
Yeah. So
what about now? A year? Is it 2 years into the Seth Premier Medical?
Yeah. No, 9 months.
Where am I getting 2 years? Wow.
2 years.
I feel like I've known you forever. My goodness. So 9 months. Is there things that you would have done differently looking back over these 9 months?
Yeah, definitely.
What would you have done?
So we bought our building. And we renovated it. We waited too long in the renovation. A big reason why we waited was we had gone through a contractor, and that contractor just had a lot of delays and pricing. And so we canceled the contract with that contractor because the price was too high. So that regret, and I knew that was going to happen because what I realized was we weren't using resources in the community. I was using resources from outside of Tampa. And I thought, I can do this because I know them and the prices would be good. But realistically, it wasn't. And that's how it goes.
Yeah.
So there was that delay. That was a good 6-month delay. Then when we got things started, we started renovating. Renovation went fast. I was very tight to the dollar because we did our own general contracting. We had a designer who really designed everything and she basically helped with our budgeting, but we were kind of working together. And so that was really helpful for us, but the budget if you don't keep an eye on it really closely, all of a sudden, for example, the painter is like, I'm going to do it for $6,000 and he gives you an $8,000 bill. Well, that $2,000, it was because I had to do this. Okay, all right. Well, that keeps adding up. So I really wish I had put a little bit more emphasis on the bills and like focusing, but at the end of the day, you really can't change that.
With construction and remodeling, it is so expensive.
And I know this is like not medical, but like that's part of the building of a clinic. Like you need to know a little bits of that stuff. And then the other thing is I bought some really expensive medical stuff. And actually, I'm very glad I did in one way. And so I bought like a stress EKG Bruce test, which has paid itself a little bit in that all my concierge patients get a stress test.
Yeah.
And they, that's like an examination that I do for them. But that was a very expensive investment, very, very expensive investment. And,
I don't think people realize how expensive it is to start a practice with the equipment and supplies. And it's astronomical.
And like Nira went and bought like a bunch of computers, and like there's just me and her, and we're like, dang.
Yeah.
And like those have a shelf life, right? Like after a couple of years, like, so, like we spent probably a little bit, maybe $5,000 or $10,000 over what we should have.
Yeah.
But realistically, that's not bad. Our banker is really happy with us. They're like, I can't believe you spent this little. Yeah. But I think spending was a big thing for us in the clinic part. Not realizing the importance of marketing the first 6 months was something that I think I solely regret.
So how would you have done it differently?
Well, so we work with, I work with Andreas, who's been amazing. And I work with Vince Schwellenbach from MacBook marketing, healthcare marketing. And I wish I had listened to both of them earlier. Because a big part of it was I didn't have the funds, or I did have funds, but I didn't want to spend it.
I'm going to maybe challenge what they told you.
Huh?
I'm going to challenge what they
All
told
right, good. Okay. So I'll no, because like, for example, Vince would tell me, he's built this great website. It's phenomenal. And he's like, maybe we should put some money in Google ads.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just don't have money. And I just, because when you don't have any patients, it's not like revenue's coming in that you could just start spending.
Right.
So I struggled with that. As soon as we started spending in Google ads, then we started getting patients. That being said, we also didn't know what we were until we started to develop that stuff. Yeah. Now we have like products, we have weight loss products, we have longevity medicine, we have genetic testing and blah, blah, blah.
Do you think, so I'm going to challenge you even further, just going through that experience. And what I've always told you, I don't think it is necessarily at the beginning, the Google ads, the fancy website, even though Vince helped me, helped you. I think what he does and Andreas does is outstanding. I think at the end of the day, patients are wanting you and you need to get in front of patients. So remember what I told you, what would be the best thing is what I did. I had 0 patients, but I worked at an urgent care. I went to a lot of the country clubs and I gave health seminars. I wanted people to know who Dr. Parker was. And slowly but surely patients were coming and I had no advertisements, nothing. My first 2 years, I couldn't afford ads. I couldn't afford it. But my first 2 years was really building the practice through interactions and getting out there and letting people see who you truly are. I think that was one of the best things I did. And then now it's we have more physicians on board. And I think that's where the Google ads come into play.
So you started in 2017, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Was like Instagram and Facebook like really popular as it is now? It wasn't, right?
Not really. No.
So like that's
a Facebook page for Parker Medical, but that was about it. But I would maybe post once every 2 weeks.
Right.
Now we have a brand ambassador that posts daily.
Yeah. So like that's actually been something that's helped me is kind of get out into the public because like with the help of Andreas, he's like kind of curated my like image in the public and like getting out in the public. And what I've noticed is you can see where the level of interest in people who are looking for, my kind of concierge medicine, based on like some of the videos that I post. Yeah. And for example, there's this one about hypertension that had like a ton of people interested. And that's interesting. Like, so now you're ahead of that, you're getting in front of people. Yeah. And then that, generates hopefully clicks and whatnot. So,
right. Because I think if you have, and you'll find when patients are signing up, they're the ones that are going to be the best marketers for you. Because if you give them a good product, they're going to tell Joe and Sally, and pretty soon they're coming in and then they're telling, it's a snowball effect. And it's really interesting to see.
So let me ask you a question because it's my turn now.
Yeah, okay. All right.
No, I got a good one. So I don't have any staff. right? Well, I have one, but I married her and she's not going anywhere. So, do you have any regrets with staffing?
Good question. Well, all the staff that I have been with me really from the beginning. One of my first employees, her name is Jill, and she's really should be at a stage in her life where she should be retired, being with her family. And in a way, she rescued me at a time I needed someone, but in a way, I think I rescued her because she already was retired and not enjoying her retirement. Mm-hmm. She came and really helped build the practice. She was the voice and the first person that people would see when they would walk into Parker Medical. There's been a few medical assistants that haven't really shared the vision. In a concierge practice, I have a certain standard. It's almost like when we go check into a hotel. We are checking into a hotel to sleep, spend the night, right? But there is a difference between a Motel 6 and a Four Seasons, right? And people may want to pay for that better level of that experience, right? And I think that is training those staff who has the vision that you do. And sometimes it's hard to train, right? I want some makeup on. I want your hair to be combed. I want you to have pressed scrubs, Mm-hmm. Sometimes they don't always follow that vision. Yeah. So first impressions are everything.
Yeah. Right? Jinx.
So, right. But at the end of the day, all my staff is outstanding. I do want to share one story that you may think would be like this diamond in the rough, but it actually came to bite me in the ass at the end of the day. So it was in my second year, and there was a colleague who was moving to Washington, D.C. He had a pretty thriving concierge practice, private practice, and he approached me about taking over his panel. And so we had a town hall meeting with several patients. I got to introduce Parker Medical, got to introduce myself. Yeah. And at the end of the day, many, if not all of his patients came to me. So I inherited quite a few patients. I never actually gave you this detail before. Yeah. But it was a blessing and it was also a curse because so many patients were used to how this doctor performed. And they were so used to what he would do. And my business was a little bit more organized, and I had certain standards that were a lot different. He let patients kind of walk all over him at the end of the day. And we don't do that in this practice. So there was a lot of patients that were very frustrated, but they thought that they were just merging into a different form of his practice. What I wish I would have done is said, thank you for the opportunity. If they are interested in a new doctor, here is my business card. Have them reach out to me. So that's the one thing I wish I would have done differently.
Because then their expectations would have been, I'm changing,
but this is a whole different concierge office. I think they were just under the impression that I'm kind of becoming a part of who he already was. Okay. And that nothing was going to change. When in reality, everything changed. And there were a lot of patients that actually left. There's still several that stayed, but there was a lot of patients that actually left. And I think, again, he's a great physician. I think he had a different personality than I did. I think he let a lot of patients walk all over him. And so they got away with everything from how they talk to the staff to being very demanding. And we don't tolerate that in my office. We don't.
What's interesting about that is like maybe even the possibly, that perception that you wouldn't have done that. Right. But you also learned about this is the consequence what happens if you let these guys walk all over you.
Right. So for example, let's say Parker Medical is going away. Dr. Seth, I'm giving you 700 patients. Here you go. Yeah. And we have a town hall and you have 5 minutes to introduce yourself. Yeah. Now patients come in and they're saying to you, Dr. Parker didn't do it this way. I don't want to do it that way. Yeah. Dr. Parker did it this way. Yeah. Well, you're not Dr. Parker. Yeah. Right? So that's the one thing I probably would have done differently. I think in any business, it's always going to be maybe an uphill climb, and it's nice to look back to see, kind of the hurdles and everything that we've went through. I think it definitely makes you who you are, right? I say just enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you're totally right on this. I look back in this like conversation, I think there's so many times I could have said, oh, I wish I didn't like that happening, but if it didn't happen, I wouldn't have learned from it. And I know like that's what everybody says, but that's real. Like if I didn't go to medical school when I was older, I wouldn't have had the experiences that I've had before that.
Right.
If I didn't go through a foreign medical school at Ross University, I wouldn't have become the person, the student that I am today. So
I think it's all in the journey, right? Just honor the season, and things happen in our lives that sometimes are out of our control, but they have led to you and me sitting here today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely.
So, no regrets.
No regrets.
Thanks for joining us for this one. These conversations matter because sometimes the biggest lessons in medicine aren't clinical. They're really personal. And if you're in a season where you're grinding, questioning, comparing, or trying to figure out what the next step looks like, you're not alone. Looking back is only useful when it helps you move forward. And if there's one theme from today, it's this: the journey is what makes the physician. Every setback, every delay, every wrong turn, those things up building the doctor that you become.
If this episode brought you value, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe a resident, maybe a medical student, or a friend in the middle of a big life transition. And make sure to subscribe, leave a rating, and as always, shout it from the rooftops. And if you're in Las Vegas or Tampa and you've been looking for a different style of care, one that feels personal, high touch, and actually tailored to you, our practices are open to new patients.
In Las Vegas, you can find us at Parker Medical, and in Tampa, you can find Dr. Seth at Seth Premier Medical. Both practices are built on the same philosophy you hear on this podcast every single week: real relationships, real access, and proactive care that doesn't wait for problems to show up.
Links to both clinics are in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Out of Network.